Welcome to Halloween Fun. I hope that you're going to enjoy this little episode. This is really an idea place that I'm trying to share some of the ideas of what I have done over the years with Halloween. This has been my favorite time of year. I often have several Halloween stories that I will read within the classroom time, and I will always do acting and putting it together. So this is my best time of the year to start to really build character and expression, vocals, if I want them to be able to say certain things. And if I have a shy person, being able to get them to express themselves in a different way, or if I have somebody who's very vocal, how to be quiet, how to be moving around people and, being a little bit more subtle about how you're doing it. This is my time of year when I actually get to do that. So my storytelling is always so much fun to be able to play with the dancers, but also to bring out my puppets, put costumes on my puppets. And if there's any lessons I want to put in, I can easily add that at the very beginning of my time. So as a family member, there are different ways that you might decide to put the music on and play together. And I hope you'll do that. And when you've finished carving your pumpkins, dancing around the pumpkins, there's lots of ways that you can play with those pumpkins and do some other activities too. So I hope you enjoy your Halloween time. I hope you enjoy playing with props and also expanding your knowledge about characters, expression, and different ways of moving when you can just be free. Hi, it is almost Halloween, and this has been one of my favorite times for teaching dance. Unfortunately, I'm not in the classroom this year, and everything I'm doing is online. So I'm missing the opportunity to dress up in costume, to be able to be characters that normally don't get to be, and just to be outside of ourselves and be something a little bit different. What I want to share with you is the Ghostbuster dance. This has been a favorite for many years, and many of you will know the Ghostbuster music. And what I usually do is I set it up that we put on a backpack, so that pretend put on the backpack, that we have a start button in our shoulder, and just pushing on that start button, and then taking your hands to be like a vacuum cleaner. And you are going in search of ghosts to see what you can suck into your backpack. And once that ghost gets into the backpack, it does crazy things. So it might giggle, it might get the hiccups, it might laugh uncontrollably, it might be really, really grouchy, but it can also move different ways. So you can work with sound and making sounds so that all of the dancers have to make the sound of giggling or being grouchy, but then you can also go to movement. So it could be that the ghost that you catch into your backpack loves to jump up and down, but not straight, maybe like Tigger. And so your jumping is a zigzag back and forth. And maybe your ghost is very sleepy. And it just wears out the person. Your ghost might be spinning around, go fast, go slow, go high, go low. It might make you march your feet, run on your tiptoes, leap through the air. There are so many ways that you can play around with the dynamics of moving, and you can do it all while searching for a ghost. Now, what I've done is I've asked them to put their vacuum cleaner, turn it on, and go in search of the ghost. So we've looked up high, we've looked down low, we look underneath chairs and benches, whatever happens to be in the room. And they will go running to find a spot to find their ghost. And when they catch that ghost, they go down in there, they're not scared, and they catch the ghost. And once they've caught the ghost, then you say, this ghost likes to jump and turn at the same time. And that's the action that they will do. And then you go, oh, I think that ghost went to sleep. Let's go find another ghost. So you continue that all the way through the Ghostbusters music until you get to the very end. And then you let them just play with the kind of ghost they have until the music finishes and their ghost goes to sleep. It's a favorite game to play. I hope you enjoy. now we're looking at the witch's broomstick. When I first began teaching, and that was back in, oh my gosh, 1981, something like that, I went to the library because I couldn't afford to buy any music, and that was the only way I would get it. And I took out every children's record I could find. And in that time, there was a seasonal record. I have no idea what the title is now, but the song was Pass the Witch's Broomstick. That one I have used every year to play that game. And I'm sure many of you have played it before because it's kind of like playing hot potato. So what I get is a witch's broomstick. Sometimes broomsticks, little people, that can be a little bit hard to pass around. So I might get actually just a cloth pumpkin or a stuffed pumpkin, like a teddy bear-like object. And then we pass that around the room. Now, all of you have played that before, except now you have Halloween characters that you can play with. So whoever ends up with the stick after you've passed it around the room either has to get on their broomstick and fly a certain way. So maybe it's running on toes, maybe it's marching, maybe it's spinning, maybe it's leaping. And you can change the dynamics of what's happening. And they need to go around the outside of the circle while everyone else is clapping for them. And when they finish, they pass the broomstick to someone in the circle. And then their job is to get into the middle of the circle and have a seat, until eventually there'll only be a couple people left to pass the broomstick to. This game can be played in many different ways. It can be changed into partner work, so they have to go two at a time. And you can also change the way that you want to play with the prop. So not to think always about just pass it around the room. You can add sounds to what you're doing. You can add the witch's cackle. You can add giggling. You can have small giggles. You can have bright giggles. You can change it into being grouchy. You could change it into making certain kinds of sounds like an S or maybe a shh. And maybe when you're flying around the room, there's wind. So you can have the whole room while they're clapping their hands, making the sound of the wind. Ooh. Sounds a little bit like a ghost too. But you can play around with the dynamics of how you want the whole group to be engaged in the game. This is all about being able to get outside of the box. How can I not be myself? And how can I be a character that I would be too shy to play at any other time of the year, except in the fall when it's acceptable to be a character and to be anything you want to be. So I hope that you'll take that broomstick idea and enjoy it. You can look up Pass the Witch's Broomstick. I'm not sure you can find it, but if you can, enjoy. And if you can't, you can pick any kind of themed Halloween music or just themed music, something about broomsticks, or there's some different songs, Abracadabra, something from Cinderella. You could pick any of those kinds of pieces of music, and then you just need somebody to be on the machine or the iPod to stop the music when you need it to be stopped. So if we're passing the broomstick around the room, being able to stop it when you need to stop. I always have made sure that every dancer has had a turn and that there's a possibility for all people to be involved at all times. So it isn't waiting because you've already had your turn and there's nothing to do. So that's why the clapping, making extra sounds, being a part of what the celebration is when the person holding the broomstick goes around the circle. Okay, let's talk about the Halloween freeze. I know that lots of teachers like to use a freeze game. My rule with creative teaching in dance has always been that I'm only allowed to use a game 3 times in my entire teaching year. And so that kept me fresh with all the ways that I could possibly use something. And the freeze game is sometimes an easy just go-to kind of thing, but you can change the rules up. So when you play the Halloween freeze game, you can be different kinds of characters, but you can also add the sounds. You can add an expansion of movement and a contraction of movement. You could be a ghost, and the ghost could be big and reach up onto the top of your tippy toes and try to be big, but you may have a ghost that's very small, and then you have to try to be very quiet. But a ghost might decide to go fast, and if you were going to go fast, could you run with your hands behind you on your tiptoes as quick as you could go? So with this game, you could use any kind of music that has great sounds in it that could create an atmosphere or a story. And if you wanted to start with a storybook that had different characters in it, you could go from start to finish through those characters, put the music on, play around with that character, and continue. But what you're going to do with the freeze is you've got everybody moving, maybe they're running like ghosts, and when they freeze, they have to turn into a pumpkin. And if that's the case, then you may decide to have them go round and then bend the knees standing up, but you may have them decide to sit down on the floor, put their feet together, and round themselves over like a sitting pumpkin. You could also go into bats. So they could be flying around the room like this, but when the music stops, they have to be a skeleton and make a crazy shape. You might decide that what you want to do is mix it up fast and slow with speeds and change the way the character is going. So every time the music stops, you say slow. And then if they were being, say, the skeleton, they would have to move very slow like a skeleton, but then you might say fast. And every time the music stops, they have to freeze. And then when the music starts, you've picked a new speed. Now, if it's little people, I usually don't pull anybody out because that's really hard to play. But as they get a little bit older, to older preschool, then you have the elimination game, which is pull out somebody who froze last. And I always make sure I say it as you were the last one to freeze. It wasn't that you didn't freeze, it was that you were the last one to freeze. And then you need to come sit down. But then you get to be a participant in that I need your eyes to be able to look around the room and see who else needs to freeze or who is going to be the last one to freeze. Okay, that game is a great one. Any kind of music, Halloween music, different kinds of sounds, and you can have a lot of fun changing the dynamics on that one. One of my favorite musicians for children is Charlotte Diamond. And a song that I have used always in the fall is Looking for Dracula. Now, Dracula could be a scary character for kids. So what I've always done is talked a little bit about what it's like to be scared and not scared, and how you can be very powerful and you can have superpowers. So that way, if you are going to be scared, all you have to do is call out your superpower, and then you don't have to be scared anymore. So I'm working through different kinds of feelings that dancers may have, and then how can they express those feelings while we're moving and doing our dance. Looking for Dracula is wonderful because it keeps saying, I'm not afraid. And every time she says it in the music, she gets more and more afraid. So I can override that with my voice for a younger dancer, and I can say, I'm not afraid, and be louder than Charlotte is in the music. Or I can be more and more scared. I'm not afraid. And then how do you make that sound? How do you show afraid? You squish up those shoulders, your head comes down, you start to shake, your knees start to shake. You can bring all of those concepts in, and then you go, I'm not that anymore. And it's very easy to shift and realize that you can act, and then you can let it go and return back to being you. So as Dracula is going, there's stomps and marches. The music leads you all the way through everything you need to know. But when you open the door and the door creaks, you can make the sound. And then the bats come out, which can make some great sounds, but you can also have different people playing different parts of the characters to play through that. That has been a really big favorite, and that's like one that, you know, gets played all year round if the kids have an opportunity to do it again. And so I invite you to check out Looking for Dracula. Okay, I talked about Charlotte Diamond's Looking for Dracula. Now I'm going to talk about Spiderweb. Spiderweb is a song that she put together that is very soft and almost ballet-like, but we can also play with it in different ways. We could have a group of dancers holding their hands, creating a spider's web. The different ways that they can hold on to the hands, the legs, everything could start to build the web. And that's really fun to bring people together. We could also do that for older dancers and talk about how the fascia works and how that sheath that goes around all of our muscles can shift in its shape. And so by reaching out in different directions, you can have those different shapes being shown by, you pull one person and they go long, what happens to everybody else in response? So there are different ways that you can play with that one. For a younger dancer, spider's web, I like to use these little sticks. These actually glow in the dark. So if I put on my black lights in my studio, then I would get these sticks glowing. They're just little yardsticks and small enough, light, so they're easy to play with. And I could make the spider web and dance with my stick. Now, when everybody's in the room dancing together, the spider web, you can start to see how all of the different web movements come together to form a big spider's web. Okay, that would be one way that you might want to do that. You can also use a parachute. And often the stitching, the white stitching on the parachute, when you put it under the black lights, you see the white stitching. And when you've got everybody at the end of the parachute, you can have that parachute moving around different ways, waving, and that creates another opportunity to talk about a web or how we work together and how to be a collective unit. The spiderweb song is beautiful for running on tiptoes, walking through the feet, pointing the toes, marching, and then also smooth movements, how to make everything flow together with the whole body. All right, enjoy playing with the spider's web. Okay, I want to talk to you a little bit about the sock dance. When I went to study with kid dance many years back, it was a creative teaching methods course that I took for dance teachers. And this brought me into the world of props, pretend, bringing alive make-believe within the dance studio so that we were not always just asking them to put it into their imagination, but we actually created it within the space. And so when I came back from that workshop, I bought black lights. I put them up in the roof of my studio, and so they would shine down on us. And when we wanted to, we could turn all the other lights off and put those black lights on. This gave me the opportunity to work with shy people who wouldn't otherwise want to show anything that anybody could see, but in the dark with the black lights, nobody actually knew who they were. And there were times when I was able to reach into a student and pull out some expression that they wouldn't normally be able to give me. What we would do is take just white, just regular socks, put them on our hands, and usually on the kids it would come up to about here. And then we could start to create all kinds of shapes with the socks glowing. When we did that, we could start to do some partner choreography where they could mirror each other, or where a group could get together to make some different shapes, or even we could do skits, and they'd have to tell the whole thing by how they did their actions. Maybe it's 4. So lots of ways of playing pantomime, and you can use it with socks on the hands. You can have, different colored pieces on the body that glow. And I talked about boogie bags in this episode as well. Boogie bags are lycra bags. They were really large bags that I just sewed up. They had an opening in them so we could get into them, and then we could make different shapes. And the best part about it was they glowed in the dark. So those people who were observing the people in the boogie bags, they would be able to see what the shapes were and just enjoy the kind of the fun that came out of the boogie bags. That was always a huge hit in the studio. Now, some of these restrictions from COVID, we can't always play the games quite the same way, but I'm hoping as I've shared the ideas of what I've done over the years, it might spark something in you to do something a little bit different. And if you're a family member watching and you're looking for some things to do with your family, there's a lot of fun ways to create. Check out the Halloween music that I have on my Spotify playlist. So Michelle Greenwell's playlist, I have several playlists up there, but I have collected some of the songs that I could get my hands on Spotify, and just have some fun, enjoy. So happy Halloween.